Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today are Louis D'Souza and Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. We're starting off this week with a question. And the question is, what's next? Yeah, we're actually going to try to answer that one today. And we're going to encourage you to answer the question in your own minds. That's kind of what the conversation is going to be about today, kind of inspiring listeners to answer for themselves that question, what's next? Because we have a guest joining us today, Louis and Anne-Marie, who's all about what's next. She even calls her business What's Next. I mean, if you're going to lay it out any more clearly than that, I don't know if that's possible, but she's made it about as clear as she can make it. And I'm also going to be curious about this conversation because she shares something in common with Louis. They're both originally from South Africa. I have a feeling that's going to come into the conversation as well at some point. So this is going to be fun. So first, let me just check in with my co-host, Anne-Marie. We were chatting before we got started here, and I was telling you a couple things going on, but I didn't get a chance to ask you. So how are you doing? I mean, you've been through some interesting stuff lately.
Yeah, no, I'm doing very well, very well. Like I said, I think last time I've learned to play chess. Husband couldn't beat me yesterday. Result.
Ooh,
so yeah.
Progress. I love it. Good progress. All right.
But yeah, all is wonderful. Thank you, Louis. Walt, I'm sorry.
You're welcome, Emery.
So I guess that's my segue. There's my microphone. That's my segue to Louis. So Louis, I hesitate to ask this because your life is always just so smooth and swimming, but anything cool going on right now that we should know about?
Yeah, lots of swimming.
Lots of swimming? Oh, okay. Backstroke, front stroke, I mean.
What's been happening recently? I'm trying to think. Nothing too much that I wanted to chat about. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Well, as usual, we're glad to have you here. It's good to have you part of our conversation here on Monday, especially as we're joined by Lauren St. George, who is originally from South Africa, lived a bunch of years now in the U.S. and based in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And Lauren, first of all, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. And second, give us like a little bit of a biography. Tell us about yourself.
Basically, how did I get from Atlanta from South Africa to Atlanta?
Well, sure. Oh, I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah.
A little background on me. So yeah, I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, here with my family, 2 kids and some dogs that hopefully we won't hear in the background. I currently run, a company called What's Next, which is, so beautifully slipped in there and is certainly about answering that question of what's next in our lives. What's that next chapter look like? So, my background's in consulting and coaching, some marketing, branding, storytelling, variety of things, but they've all kind of led to today. And, I really wanted to just help people figure out, the next chapter of their life and take the experiences and the methodologies and things I've learned along the way to help them do that.
You just said one of my favorite words, storytelling. I love storytelling. I think we all do, really, when it comes down to it. But I got to ask your first question. How do you tie storytelling into what you do?
I think it's by helping people remember what their story is. I think along the way we pick up a lot of things from our families and our work and our lives just kind of packs on. And it's not to say any of that stuff is bad, but I think we forget about who we are along the way. So we got to figure out, who we are again, reacquaint ourselves with ourselves and figure out our story forward.
So storytelling in order to remember ourselves.
I think both. I think, the stories from the past that stand out to you, that stand out to people in your life that know you. It's a fascinating exercise, actually, to ask people to recount moments where that stand out for them with regards to you and where you've made an impact on their lives. And what's really interesting is, how many of those moments in time do you yourself remember, versus, what was significant for someone else?
Yeah, that's true. Well, just the question itself, what's next? It's almost a disruptive question. Because we're living our daily lives. We're just doing all our stuff every day. And then somebody says, what's next? And you say, well, wait a minute. What do you mean next? I'm living my life right now. What's the problem? So when you ask the question, what's next? It's almost like somebody just kind of tapped you on the shoulder and said, okay, wake up. What's next? I have to have an answer for that? Really? Wow. Where do I go with that?
Well, I mean, I think for a lot of people that find me, they've already gone through that moment of asking the question, what's next? And then invariably coming up with an answer of, I have no clue.
Exactly. Yeah.
They've already at least hit some pivotal moment in their life where they've encountered the question. Like, there's a lot of people who are out there who are, kind of happy with the patterns and the way they're living their life, or they're not happy but not asking the question. So at least people that come into my life have kind of hit that tipping point of, I don't want it to be like it is right now, but I'm not quite sure what the next thing is.
So what's next is actually a way of saying, I am aware of where I'm at. I don't really like where I'm at. I want to change that in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think people don't come looking for me unless they already have asked that question.
I guess that's true, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't go looking for a coach unless you need some coaching for some reason.
Exactly.
So, well, when you formed What's Next as a company, you had a vision in mind. What was your vision?
My vision was definitely to build something that has lasting impact for people. It was also to teach them skills. My background's in creativity, and a lot of people think of creativity as drawing or painting, but really it's the ability to solve problems and come up with new and novel ideas. So, my desire is also to teach people how to be more creative.
Okay. How's that worked out?
I think it's working well. I mean, I think that just by going through my program, people are learning tools that they can take on into their life. And then the things I'm sharing, right? Doing podcasts and, newsletters and the rest of it is to try and help people, learn some easy tools that can help them to solve problems in new ways.
So give us a taste. I mean, they jump into your program and they're going, okay, we're here to create today. Let's let the creation begin. What do I do next?
We ask a series of questions that get people thinking, but hopefully we ask them from different angles that use different parts of your brain. We do it in a way that hopefully is disruptive, because if you keep asking the same question, you're going to keep getting the same answer. So, we really seek to try and ask the questions that peel back the layers of the onion, the proverbial onion. So that annoying 4-year-old, that keeps going, why? I try to do it in no, there's actually an activity where we do that, but I try to do it in a way that's at least more thought provoking. But we use different parts of our brain.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking about Louis, because Louis has often told us his story about how he went on to his journey and started as a spiritual journey and then a health journey and so forth. And it was always, why this? How does that work? What's that all about? What's that purpose all about? And I'm thinking, as you're describing What's Next, I'm thinking, did Louis write that program?
I don't know. We can compare some notes.
I mean, did you write that program, Louis? You tell me. I have no idea.
I don't know. Something deep inside me said, ask. So who wrote that program? I don't know.
Well, at least asking questions gets us into more of a growth mindset, right? If we don't ask the questions, we're not gonna push the boundaries. At least that's
and asking good questions is also important.
It is. Good questions are important. I've made a career at asking questions. Yeah, you're right. But, hopefully you ask enough questions from enough different angles and you can help people, get unstuck.
So what constitutes a good question?
Louis, what do you think makes a good question?
Well, if the question is leading to something that is helping you expand, then it's a good question. But if it's helping you go down your vibrationally similar route, then it's not of particularly much value at all.
Yeah, I think it needs to be thought-provoking. It needs to be open-ended. I don't think you want a yes/no question. It needs to be open. It needs to require some thinking and probably some vulnerability.
we often have students in the house who, people we've never met before, and I never ask them yes or no questions. How was your trip today? Was it good or bad? And you just don't ask that. You say, what did you love about London today? Or, and then things come out. But open-ended questions are brilliant to really get into what somebody's actually thinking or where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then asking things like, tell me more. Keep it going,
Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's no real secrets to coaching. I think it's providing a space where people feel safe, where they trust you enough to be open, that you can ask those questions and then sit back and let them talk. It's not about providing them with the answers. It's about asking questions that help them get to an answer.
You just described the role of a podcast host.
Yes.
That's exactly what you do in a podcast. I mean, it's the whole thing right there. Beautifully wrapped up. I love it.
Well, then I can ask the same question of you. What do you think makes a good question?
It's the one that it makes you curious.
Mm-hmm.
I answered that question indirectly the other day. Somebody asked me, how do you come up with your questions when you're hosting? And I said, I am genuinely curious about the person I'm talking with. Because if you're genuinely curious, it almost doesn't matter what you're asking. What matters is it's something you really want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really want to know, well, first of all, you don't tend to ask a yes or no question because you don't learn that much, like you guys are pointing out. But more than that, you ask a question that resonates with you. And when it resonates with you, then any answer that comes your way is going to say, oh, I haven't thought of it that way. Or, oh, I like that. Or, oh, that doesn't really work for me. But it's going to, in some way, you're going to in some way react and respond to it internally. Whereas if you're just asking a question just because you're supposed to be asking the questions, the answer comes back and you're like, oh, okay, well, so what? Because it doesn't resonate. Nothing actually connected inside. So another way of answering the same question is, yes, it's about the curiosity, but more it's about what resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can ask the question about that, that's how you end up with great conversations. And that's how you end up learning stuff too.
Walt, one of my favorite questions is, do you really believe that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
You said that a few times.
Just a few, occasionally, yeah.
Just a few. Because when you get down to somebody's core, which is their belief, then you can really start helping them see things maybe in a different way. Because once the core changes, then a whole magnitude of things change.
Mm.
I do the same thing with values. Because I think they impact beliefs, they impact decision making.
A value is a belief, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And which are truly yours, and which have you picked up from your parents and from the world around you, and which ones are serving you moving forward, right? Because we have the ability to swap things out. If it's not working for you anymore, then what should it be?
That's one of the most interesting thing about values for me. People tend to think of values as being static, and they're not. They're very dynamic. They shift sometimes hourly, but they shift day by day or week by week. And some values we hang on to longer than others.
Not everybody.
You mean that's why everybody's the same all the time? Oh my God.
You're getting it.
No, I think even the people who seem to be the same all the time. I remember having a conversation with my cousin this past summer. I haven't seen him in, God, I don't know, 25 years, something like that. And he was saying very much the same kinds of things he used to say 25 years ago. And yet, in that similarity, in that same pattern that was going on, I could tell there was new stuff. And some of it was new that day. So, yeah, we do have the tendency as humans, because we go through the same thought patterns every day. I mean, 95% of our thought patterns are the same as they were yesterday. We do have that going on. But even those of us who are like stuck in our most stuck areas and our most rigidly unchanging areas, we still can't help but explore something new occasionally, even if it's just in a little way. Like, no, don't notice what I'm doing over here. Pay attention to this way of expressing I've always values because that's my safety zone and that's the only area I'm going to let you look at. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But the man behind the curtain is where the real stuff is happening. And it usually happens beneath the surface. So I understand what you're saying. I'm not so sure it's true. I actually think that people are constantly changing values, reevaluating their values, examining them again, making adjustments to them. And they may be happening in a very small way that we don't see, but it's happening. The only time that the values stop changing, I think, is when we die.
How do you know?
I was going to say they might still be changing. You never know. You're not been there yet.
That's a fair point. Let's just say that's as far as I know about.
But I love listening to other people's values and other people's things because it just puts a different perspective on things. And it doesn't necessarily change mine, but I just find it so intriguing how we all have different thoughts and different values and different questions. It just fascinates me.
If you didn't have any interest in even considering shifting a value, you wouldn't ask a question. The whole purpose of asking the question is to ask yourself, does this play any differently for me? Otherwise, why would you bother?
I have to wonder though, outside of the people in this conversation, how often that actually does happen for people that they change, that they sort of, look at their values and reassess.
Oh, probably not consciously. 99.999% of all value evaluation. Yeah. Okay. That's a little bit redundant, but value evaluation happens without really thinking about it.
I think a lot of people's values are also fed to them. Fed to them through media, fed to them through news.
Which is why when somebody's thought about their own values and it's clear about them, it's very easy for them to have a conversation, but not necessary for the other person.
True.
And I'm not saying it's easy for somebody to make a change in their life because of a change in valuation. I'm just saying that the change in valuation is what makes them uncomfortable. I mean, no matter what situation they're in where there's something they don't like going on, they may keep hammering that I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this button over and over again. But every time they're doing it, it's because they found one more way that they really don't like that. And that's a change in valuation. It may not be for the better, but it's a change in valuation.
I have to say though, I do just love the why question. The why. That's what I use. If I'm journaling and stuff, I use that all the time. Well, why? Why do I feel like, why? I love that. For me, it just really just digs down. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better question, Anne-Marie. Why not?
Well, why?
Why not? Why not?
Why?
But there is something powerful in flipping questions, like you just did. Because, a lot of people get into this mind pattern and thought process of going, well, that's not going to happen for me, or I'm not going to do that because XYZ might happen. Like the self-defeating stuff. And if you actually flipped it around and said, well, what if it actually does work out for me? And I think that that's part of, creating that more optimistic, mindset that can attract, more opportunity and more things to you because you've created a more hospitable mindset. So flipping questions, I think, is important too.
Well, that's a coaching skill. That's one of the main things that a coach does to basically get the person that they're helping to think about something differently. Right?
Yep. Get you out of those stuck patterns of thinking. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Creates opportunities, doesn't it?
Which boils down to when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. When you focus on what you do want, you can creatively focus towards it.
It's at least a place to start, right? If you can't answer the question, at least start to put some parameters on it. I don't want this. I don't want that. At least start to, shorten the list of possibilities.
When you have a better idea of what you don't want, you start having a better idea what you do. So it's an accumulative aspect. And of course that is contrast. And of course contrast, as far as I've learned along the way, is the teacher. And a good coach is somebody who brings a lot of contrast to the student.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like
in a guided way.
Mm-hmm. I like to up that contrast by doing it in a group situation, because then you're bringing multiple perspectives, multiple experiences and expertise to the table.
I find group is very good to get rid of the silly bugger, because a group kind of, when they start being silly, everybody just like, oh, okay, like that, are they? And seen the same with. Don't know if you've ever seen The Dog Whisperer, Cesar Millan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to get some of these really wayward dogs sorted, he throws them into his pack of 40 dogs, and the dogs teach the dog how to behave and what behavior really is and should be, and where they can go and focus and all the rest of it. And I think the groups, what I've seen is when there's bigger groups, you really get people taking everything a little more seriously.
They can. I mean, I think if you're coming to it at the right intention, then you're there to not only be accountable for yourself, but for the other people in the group. And with that, I think it's quite a lot of power. If you're showing up honestly, and you're sharing, and it inspires others to do the same, and I think it can create a environment for change to happen. Because it's all around you. It's not just, it's not just a one-way conversation. It's multiple perspectives. Yeah.
There's another lesson that comes out of The Dog Whisperer, because anyone who's ever seen that show knows that he spends about 5 minutes on the dog and about 50 minutes on the owner. The dog doesn't take very long. The dog just gets it really, really fast. Yeah, it's more about helping the dog's owner to let go of stuff and shift patterns and look at the contrast and get a new perspective and all that kind of thing. And then hear the owner describe, wow, I had never thought of it that way.
So Lauren, what age did you leave South Africa?
I was 14 when we left, so I've been gone a long time. My stepfather at the time had an opportunity to come out to the US, British, by background, but he had an opportunity to come out and help build a company out here. So we came with, and so I encountered high school in the US and college and kind of stuck around.
Sympathies.
It's surprisingly, definitely there was, we came in going, at least we both speak the same language. We speak English. This should be okay. And they were all kinds of.
And then you realize Americans don't speak English.
Yeah, that's the other
problem. They don't speak South African. So there was definitely a lot of, thinking people understanding what you were saying, but they had zero clue.
Like just now was a favorite over here.
Just now, yes.
Yes. In South Africa, just now means now till any time in the future. When you say just now to a UK person like Anne-Marie, she'll think you mean it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no real parameters on that. And then now, I guess, is somewhat closer in time, but it's still could be between now and the next hour. Yeah, so it was definitely, arriving at the US and then doing ninth grade was a fascinating time to, to start high school and to move countries and, but it all worked out in the end. Here I am.
Ninth grade is an interesting level to jump into the American educational system. Like, ooh, that's like deep immersion going on there. Oof.
It is. And on top of that, I ended up, my family's not religious, but I ended up at an all-girls Catholic high school because we arrived.
More interesting.
We arrived in Denver.
Father, for I've sinned. Right?
We arrived in Denver about 3 weeks before school started, and I ended up doing a entrance exam at one of the private schools, and South Africa runs their school year, January to December, whereas the US doesn't. And I was halfway through ninth grade, tested into 10th grade. They didn't have space for me, and they wouldn't take me in tested into 10. They didn't have space for me, so they were like, go down the road. There's a Catholic high school. Maybe they'll take you. But it actually ended up being a very positive experience. I'm not to say that I think people should do, single sex education all of their life, but I think for young women as teens, doing single sex education is not a bad idea.
I hear it's quite competitive, more competitive than co-ed.
But it's competitive in different ways. It's not like who's wearing makeup and, coming to school all dressed up. But by senior year, girls were far more relaxed about the way they looked. They were competitive academically, scholastically, and through sport and all of those things. But there's more than enough research that shows that teachers tend to, even when they're not not explicitly doing it, do tend to teach more towards the boys in the room. So that takes that out of the equation. Okay. So there's some bias in that. So that was, again, none of that was by design. It was just they had space for me. And my mom was like, do the first year, and if you want to move, we'll move you to another school. And I ended up staying. So that was my entry into the US.
So you've got the I survived Catholic school sticker in
It had started out as all nuns, but by the time I got there, we had a couple of nuns and the rest were non-secular, so it had relaxed. That we still did, religious education for one semester a year, and we did mass and those sorts of things, once a month, but it largely wasn't.
How did the Americans take to a South African?
I joke that the first 9 months, no one understood anything that I said. They just listened to the accent.
I can believe that. Americans are fascinated with accents.
This is true.
They are, and always amazed that they have one themselves, which I find funny.
Yes. Just go from state to state, and they should hear the difference.
There honestly wasn't much conversation or questions about South Africa or where I came from. Yeah. Not on a deep, political level, but certainly there were questions about life in South Africa, and certainly it wasn't hard to pull someone's leg and tell them that the giraffes were known to eat the leaves of the trees in the backyard, but we lived in a residential area when I left.
I rode to school on an elephant, which they believe, because I've actually got a picture of me riding an elephant, but that's another story.
Yeah. So we did have some fun with that.
That is fun.
Yeah, I remember speaking to an American in America. You'll find these two stories maybe amusing. And I said to them, I'm from South Africa. I said, are you from Cape Town? I said, no. He said, yeah, Cape Town's near Cairo, isn't it? Because I'd heard the comment, from Cape to Cairo. I imagine that's where they got it from. But the other thing is I walked into the shop and it was during the middle of apartheid, and I didn't want to admit I was a South African. So this lady said, where are you from? And I said, to Australia. She said to me, Moenie vir my lieg nie. So don't lie to me.
That's the thing about living in Atlanta. There's about 40,000 South Africans here, so I'm very careful about what I say where. Because
there's 250,000 South Africans in London.
Okay, you've got more, yeah. So, what year did you leave?
1997.
Okay, so it's the as they call it, the 90s brain drain.
Yeah, I mean, it was just when Mandela was starting to take over, and everybody was talking to me about apartheid, and it was really hectic for me because I hadn't sorted out my whole thought about where I fit into the whole picture. Because I'm a big mixture because. My surname is Portuguese. I come from Goa and India ancestry. I've got Indian blood in me. My mother was British. I was born in South Africa. My father, my mother's father was Irish. I chose to have an Irish passport because I could have a British or Irish because of my mother and her grandfather. But then I said, who hates the British? And then I said, only the British. And everybody hates the British. And then who hates the Irish? Only the Irish. So I chose an Irish passport. And then I married an Austrian, and I've got 2 English kids. So I don't know where you really put me. So
a mutt, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And, but yeah, there was a lot of talk about Mandela and apartheid and all the rest of it. And I've got loads of stories on that as well. But no, that's for another day.
Mm.
Well, I do want to get back to the question of what's next, because that was the question we kind of started the whole thing off with. And I guess I need to ask you, for you, Lauren, where did that come from? I mean, I kind of imagine it came out of the kinds of conversations we're having here, but where did what's next come from?
It came from a few different places. It came from, I think, the culmination of the work that I had done to date. I started off in a advertising marketing background, and we found a good niche working with internal innovation companies. And through that, I learned about design thinking, and human-centered design and those sorts of things, which are, business world side of things. But I did my master's in creativity and the sort of human science of solving challenges. And through learning the methodologies, I started using them on my friends and found that what I was being taught from a business world sense works just as well for individuals. And then it took my mom saying to me, she retired early, but it took her saying to me, I wish I'd spent more time thinking about what I was retiring to versus what I was retiring from. For me to go, I bet I could put something together that could help people really start to think about, what that next chapter is, whatever it is. I mean, for her, it was retirement, but, I find a lot of people find me either career changes or, it could be relationship things like divorce, empty nesters, those big, like, pivotal moments in your life. You do face what's next. We just as a globe have gone through it with the pandemic. A lot of people have faced that question of what's next.
To what degree did the question resonate within you and inspire you to start answering the question for yourself, and in that way contribute to your formulation of a company around that same question? You
mean COVID?
Well, not just COVID. No, I mean the what's next question.
Oh, now. For me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it did. I mean, I do find that every 4 or 5 years, I do kind of ask myself what's next. And if I'm still happy doing what I'm doing, then I leave it alone and I'll come back to it. But that moment when I start feeling a little uneasy or a little, restless, then I ask the question again. So, yeah, so that was me going, what am I going to do next? Cause, consulting has been going well, but what can I do that I think has more impact? From a business standpoint, I've enjoyed consulting, but it can take years before you see any of your work make it onto a shelf or see the change actually happen. Whereas when you work with individuals, and at least what I found in the program that I've designed, I see change happening a lot quicker, and it's rewarding for me. It's rewarding for them. And so that fuels me in this next chapter of my life.
Is that because the individuals are ready for what's next, and that they're particularly primed for it, or what's driving that quick change, do you think?
Well, there's typically not a board of directors and the size of some of the companies that I've worked with that, it's like trying to turn the Titanic. Change takes a lot longer because there's a lot more, people involved in making those decisions. So when it's your own life, certainly you're connected to people and you've got loved ones and spouses and children and whatnot, but making change can be a little easier. So I think that speeds up the process for people. And yeah, they're finding me at a time when they've already started to ask that question. So they're primed to at least go down the road of trying to figure out what it is. Even if it's not the right first thing, right? It's about just getting getting something moving, getting into motion, taking that first step. Because a lot of people not taking that step is fear. And so we work just as much on mindset as we do on what the actual plan itself is that people are going to do next.
Do you find that people are stuck predominantly on X? Is there an X that people are stuck on more than anything else, or does it vary dramatically from one person to the next?
I think fear of failure is a huge deterrent for people making change within their life, and a fear of change. We're built to like patterns and comfort, and so shifting that or breaking patterns to break out of the comfort zone and get yourself towards the growth zone is not easy, and it takes courage and it takes fortitude and compassion for yourself and all of those things. And sometimes it's just easier to sit on the couch and binge watch something on Netflix. Right? Change is difficult. It's rewarding, but it's difficult. So that's, it's fear. I think mindset, is the number one thing that's holding people back. And we can always make a plan and we can figure out how to get you there step by step. But there's definitely the internal work that kind of has to be done as well. And I'm not a therapist. We're certainly very much about action and getting people to a place of action. But the group situation works well for being able to talk through some of that, because you realize you're not alone in how you're feeling. Fear is common, but how do you work through it and do it anyway?
And something that I find, well, certainly here on the show, because we usually are doing, usually 3 people, sometimes 4 people on a particular show. So there's a group energy going on there. Mm-hmm. And that energy itself helps carry the conversation. I mean, there are times where I'm sitting back as a host and wondering where it's going next, and I can just follow. I can almost see it in the eyes of people who are talking, and I can see who the next person is who's going to talk, because the energy is flowing in that way. So I kind of imagine that when you're in a group what's next situation, the same kind of thing happens. Am I off base there?
No, you're right. I mean, I think in someone sharing, it opens up, the possibility of someone else to want to share, and ideas bounce off of ideas. People build upon things. So absolutely, it is. I mean, it's a group conversation. The more that you're willing to share and bring to the conversation, the more rewarding it is for you and for everyone else.
Yeah, because when everybody else is bringing it out, it almost feels safer. You talked about that safety zone. So it's almost like it expands the safety zone to a wider area where you can feel like you can explore what's next. You can explore the things that you weren't really willing to explore on your own.
Absolutely. And I think there's also some interesting power in not necessarily knowing the people that you're talking to.
Yeah.
There's a bit of freedom. Like if you come in with, I need to make change, or I need to go down this road well enough, and I'm ready to do that, then I find that people will share things even on the very first call that we have, that are surprising, that is very sort of open and out there and vulnerable. But there is something about, well, I might never see these people again. We do it remotely. So we're on Zoom. We're spread out geographically. So the likelihood that person's going to run into you in the shopping center is virtually nil. So yeah, there's something about, connecting with other humans, but also feeling like it's safe enough that you can share.
Well, plus you don't have a history with that person. I think that actually holds us back more than anything else, because when we have a history with somebody, we're thinking, okay, so what do I have to do to accommodate this other person? Because I know they've got this tendency over here, so I got to make sure I don't step on the wrong toes. You don't do that kind of thing when you don't know the people.
I like that take on it. Yeah, you're taking people exactly as you meet them and how they choose to portray themselves, because that's all the information that you have to go on. So there is.
Or to put it another way, there's less baggage, basically.
There's less baggage. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the less baggage you have, the easier it is to travel.
But I would imagine though, if you're working with people and they have got that kind of front on to start with, that doesn't last long in a group, I would imagine.
No, and I do talk with everyone before they join a cohort. So I am looking to make sure that people are at least compatible, or they're, at a similar starting place. So I try to make sure that the cohorts, cause I do small cohorts of like 4 to 8 people. So I certainly make sure that they're in the right place. Because if you were to come in and say, I have an idea of a business that I want to start, can you help me start it? that's something I can help you with as a one-on-one coach. But if you're truly stuck or you're unsure on what you want to do next, or you've got some kind of an obstacle, a fear about taking the next step, then that's perfect for bringing into the group. So I want to make sure that everyone's getting the value and what they need out of the group. So I talk to everyone before they start.
That's good. I know that one of the things that I value most about doing the podcast is all the different perspectives that I've gotten over the years, talking to so many different people. And I'm kind of wondering, somebody goes into a group like that and they probably aren't used to group work. I mean, most people aren't. It's not, I mean, other than perhaps, at a job or something like that. But for the most part, people aren't really used to diving into things in a group setting like that. So they may not be used to the idea of getting perspectives that are uncomfortable to them. And yet I found that's where the greatest growth has happened in my own case. And I think also true for my co-hosts and my guests as well. So I'm kind of wondering when you're bringing somebody in, I mean, you already talked about how you're trying to think, okay, how well do they fit in with the group that I have here? Is it going to be compatible and all that kind of thing? But are you also asking yourself what perspectives they're bringing in?
I try to keep it open. I mean, I'm not looking for, people come in from various different industries, different backgrounds. I think a mix of that is great. We do set some ground rules at the beginning, so that everyone agrees to and are welcome to add additional ground rules. But, typically we try and keep, politics and religion and those topics out of the conversation. It's truly, we are here to focus on what's next for you and kind of breaking through whatever barriers people have. So I welcome, different perspectives and try to create an environment where everyone feels welcome to share and to build upon ideas. And we talked very early on about, trying to quiet that naysayer, that voice that's going to come up within yourself, or you could do it to other people. And there's no faster way to shut off a conversation by saying no to someone or shutting down an idea that they have. So it's really up to me to create the right environment where people can explore and come out on the other end with something that's tangible and meaningful for their lives.
Yeah, you would need to, because I mean, you're right. There's a human tendency that's kind of built in to block. Oh no, I don't like that. I'm not going there. And your job as the facilitator is to say, well, let's go there just a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, everything I do has some science behind it. So, and it has been tested. And so anytime someone asks why we're doing something, I can answer that. But our brains, that sort of side of us that likes to keep comfortable and keep in, patterns and not break the status quo too much. It's the side that's connected to your fight or flight. And so while we're not necessarily being chased by woolly mammoths anymore, our brain is looking for ways to keep us safe. And so when it sees anything that's threatening, it's going to either do fight or flight. And, in those situations, anyone, having a differing opinion or coming at you with a new idea, if it seems unsafe, then you're going to shoot it down. Like, no, I can't possibly think about that or go down that road mentally, because it just doesn't feel comfortable. So again, I try as much to explain these things as we go so that there's an understanding to the method to the madness, because I do believe in serious play. So to me, it's about, while it is, people are being as vulnerable as they choose to be, and there's no rules about that, but I try to create a fun experience where people want to join in, where they want to share, where they're enjoying the time that they have together.
And there's a fine line there. I mean, I love that you try to do that. And the fine line is that on the one hand, you do want them to kind of get out of the comfort zone a little bit. But on the other hand, you want them to feel that in that getting out of the comfort zone, they're still going to be safe. It's still going to be okay. That's a fine line.
It is a fine line. So, we push it a little bit more each week, but
right.
Not from the first day.
Yeah. It's more like an elastic band. You just stretch it a little bit. Yeah, something we know a little bit about here. We stretch elastic bands, we break them, we replace them with larger ones. Yeah. I'm also curious too, when you're asking the question, what's next? What's your most common reaction? Because I imagine people coming into the group, they already know it's the what's next, so they kind of anticipate that. And I guess there's a piece of me that says, well, what if I was facing that for the first time? You really can't answer that one. But you can answer the question of, they know that they're going to be asked the question, what's next? But now all of a sudden they're faced with it. How does that tend to play out?
Well, so people will join a cohort and we have 6 weeks that we spend together. And each week has a goal and really trying to get people from a place of being stuck to leaving with a tangible plan, that they can go and use within their life. Some people will start before the program is even done. But I'm not specifically asking the question, what's next? Yeah, that is why they're there. I mean, we all know that, but it's definitely a series of questions and activities that help people to get more clarity until the point by the end of the second week where they're actually framing their own question. And that big question is what we'll then spend the rest of our time together trying to answer. And so that's a fascinating process because people will come in thinking that there's a particular area of their life that they really want to look at next, or that they think where the change needs to happen. And over the first 2 weeks and what we talk about and go through, for some people that shifts. For some people, they finally go, okay, I'm going to think bigger, or I'm going to take that leap into an area that I thought I wasn't going to. They may come in thinking, okay, I'm thinking about changing careers. But by week 2, they could be like, okay, in the back of my head, I've always been thinking about starting my own business. Let's go there. Let's spend this time thinking about what that could be and how am I going to do it. So, I always, ask people to kind of suspend disbelief and come in with a pretty blank slate and let the process take them to wherever it takes them. Because sometimes, like this conversation today, you start off in one place and you don't quite know where you're going to end up, but, you're there for the journey and hopefully, you learn some things along the way.
Yeah, that's the power of the group conversation, because with the group conversation, you never know where the energy is going to go. The one thing that you do know is that the energy is going to take you where you most need to go. It's just not the way you had thought it was going to go.
Lauren, is this all done online?
It is. Yes, it is. It's all remote. So we do 2 calls a week. The sort of a Monday, Thursday kind of thing. It's an opportunity on Mondays to set the intention for the week. What are we trying to get to? What's the goal? What are the activities that we're going to do together? What are the activities that they're going to do on their own? Because there's some homework. It's an intensive 6 weeks, but hopefully we make some good change over that 6 weeks. Thursdays is about reporting back in terms of progress and where you hit obstacles and what's kind of in the way. And as a group, how can we, help you break through some of those things that are coming up? Or have you had big ahas? Like what's come out for you that's unexpected? And so we'll talk through all of that. So yeah, we do that in video land, and we do it on Zoom, and that allows me to work with people, in various places around the globe.
Yeah, it's fun.
And have you ever done in-person classes?
Not through What's
COVID
Next.
Kind of force you online, or?
So on the consulting side of things, I was doing in-person workshops, and then yes, COVID forced us to pivot very quickly into how do we do it online. And then I think it made sense for What's Next because it launched during COVID, obviously, to be remote. I would like to, once this builds a bit bigger, I would love to actually offer some like 1 week intensive What's Next, where we get together and we're in a group and we're live and we spend a week going through the same process we go through in 6 weeks. So yeah, I would love to go back into live situations. It is different. I think, being in person versus remote, but I think we've all kind of pivoted towards this remote way of working. So I think it's a lot more comfortable for people now than it even was, a year ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that What's Next is going, what's next?
Yeah, with a background in creativity, I don't have a shortage of ideas as to what I'd like to do or how I'd like to build onto what's next. But I do, I do want to make sure that the core proposition is strong before we go adding in other things. But yeah, that is my goal is to add the in-person in.
So maybe that answers the question of what's next with Lauren. Maybe that is the next step. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I'd love to do it in some fun locations too. I don't want to be sitting in a hotel ballroom with people. I want to do it where we can again be in the right sort of environment that where people can be creative and where they can get out of their comfort zone.
I was just remembering a sleazy pub at the end of a pier in Atlanta City. Yeah, not the best environment.
It does raise an interesting point that came up in a conversation I had earlier. I had a private conversation with a guest who was on last Tuesday. And Tony and I were talking about a number of things, but one of the things we were talking about was in-person meetings, in-person connections. And you started to touch on something that I really have only kind of formulated in a sort of a nebulous state so far. I haven't really turned it into a clear what's next question, but, I want to find a way to connect in person, not in a ballroom, like you said, not in like a hotel structure. But at this point, I can't quite see how, where do you do it? I haven't figured that part out yet. I haven't figured out where do you make these connections?
Well, there's people who thoroughly enjoy organizing these things. And they've done it for years and they've got all the locations and everything.
I mean, personally, I want to do it on a beach. I would much rather do it on a beach than in a ballroom. Yeah. I think it's about, where would you want to be? Where can you be away from the life as you know it, right? So that you can kind of park that for a second and step away from your day-to-day existence and go down the road of asking those questions, in an environment that you want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of the beach. That's a good way to do it.
Well, I think you need to do a LOA, what's next, at the Grand Canyon and fly us home. I think that would be so creative, but I genuinely would love that.
Bring your overcoats. It's a lot colder than you think it is.
It can be. I was there in July many years ago. It actually was snowing on the side.
It's cold, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, it is. It's very cold. Yeah, surprisingly cold because you're at quite an elevation. That's why. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it catches you by surprise, especially if you're driving up, to the summit, to the, not the summit, but to the edge, so to speak, especially if you're going on the south edge. Because you elevate quite a bit. You can go up a couple thousand feet, 3,000 feet. And just by doing that, oh my God, it's amazing how fast the temperature shifts.
I highly recommend doing it in a helicopter.
Oh, you did the helicopter?
Because you take off obviously away from the canyon and then you're flying and the pilot will say, look down. And then the bottom just falls out.
Yeah.
It's this whoosh, just this like sinking sensation. Like
I've never done the helicopter ride. That sounds cool though.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. If you're okay with heights.
I want a bungee jump down.
Ooh.
Or hang glide or paraglide. I don't know.
Yeah, you're going to need a really long bungee cord for that one.
Yeah.
A really long one. Yeah, the paragliding, that could work. I could see that working. Hang gliding.
Paraglide?
Maybe. Do I know? One of my co-hosts on Friday, Neo, does. He's very much into that. Paramotoring really is what he does. Yeah. He just loves
skydive, scuba dive, but I haven't paraglided. I was brought up around hang gliding because in Barberton in South Africa, where I came from, it was a hang gliding site. Very popular. They were going to have the World Championships because of apartheid. They boycotted it.
Yeah.
So they had the South African Championships instead. As you do.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to the whole what's next thing, I kind of have to tie it into like a nice little bow here because we're running out of hour here. But I imagine that there could be people who are interested in pursuing their own what's next. And if they wanted to do that through your program, how does that get started for them? Like, how do they reach out? Where do they find it? What do they do?
The easiest way to find me is through my website, which is answerwhatsnext.com. Hopefully equally memorable. Through there, you can actually schedule an appointment to talk with me. There's schedule a call. You can sign up for my newsletter if you want to have some weekly inspiration. And there's far more information on there about the program itself if anyone wants to dig deeper. But that's the best way to find me at answerwhatsnext.com.
Answerwhatsnext.com. All right. We'll make sure we'll include that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Anyone who might be interested. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the gig. You come onto the program, you share your energy, you share your stuff. Hey, we got to give you a link back. I mean, that's the very least we can do. If I can't give you a link, what the hell? No, this has been great. One other thing I wanted to tell you, and I try to make this a practice with all my guests here on the program. You're in a giving trade, as so many people are, and there are many ways that you give. You give through your podcasts that you do. You give through your program, through your What's Next program. We didn't really get into too much of the other stuff that you've done, although I get the feeling there's quite a few of them that you've been doing over the years. And in the course of doing all of those, there are many people that you've touched indirectly, maybe people you've never met, you've never seen, never will see, never will meet, and you help them. And help them in ways that you don't even know about. I have come to realize that that's sort of an underserved gratitude / appreciation area. So I like to offer some gratitude in that area, and by saying thank you for what you've been doing to reach out to people you've never met and you've never seen and help them in ways that you don't even know about, because that's an important contribution. So on their behalf, thank you for what you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to recognize. Anne-Marie, as so often happens, you just kind of get into a place where you're just listening and enjoying and so forth. So I'm going to kind of ask you to wrap it up here. If you take this wide-ranging conversation that we had, what's the biggest takeaway that you've gotten out of it?
I love how thought-provoking just what next is, because it offers an alternative, as you said earlier. And I think it's a great question. So for me, it's literally, what's next? What's next for me? Let me think.
Did it get anything going?
Not yet. Not yet. But it will.
We planted the seed. That's the most important thing.
That's the thing, yeah. You know me, I have to write these things down and explore.
I was going to say, you said you were journaling earlier. You said you journal, so
yeah,
maybe take that question in.
Yeah, definitely will. I absolutely will do that.
And Louis, did What's Next inspire anything in you as we're talking here?
Well, I just think it's a great question for me to ask myself all the time. I'm always busy with something new, but at this stage, I'm just wondering what's next. And there's a lot more talks about the safe soil that are coming my way at the moment. So my audience is increasing on that side as well. And I really want to promote that and work on that. So this is what's the kind of angle or direction that I'm wanting to focus on at the moment.
Nice.
But I love the question. Thanks, Lauren.
That's good. Yeah. So thank you, Lauren, very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thanks for sharing a great question, a question that everybody needs to ask. And we wish you all the best with your continued journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.